Hi and welcome to a video about Kriik statistics, the best cards for him potentially. Now we have an average win rate of 19.29% looked at 31 decks, and here I should point out that 31 decks aren't that many. But among those 31 decks, we have something about 231 unique cards, so they're playing kinda the similar stuff but still diverse. And in this video we're gonna look at the difference. For example, this Blood Celebrant. What you see here are how many people are playing it, and the average win rate, the value just above me, and the win rate of all decks containing Blood Celebrant, which is everyone. But if we look at this card, Crystal Vein, we can see that everyone aren't playing it. 5 decks don't. And when we calculate the average win rate among the decks, the 26 that contain Crystal Vein, they have a higher win rate than the average. So what we can kinda see here is that including Crystal Vein might be good. This means that we can look at various different Kriik combos. For example, some people are going for the 80 Flux Reservoir. Now there's a little bit of a 50-50 split between the groups, either play it or don't play it. But here you can see the average win rate is something around 19%, but those decks that include 80 Flux Reservoir, they get an average win rate of 16, which is a little bit lower than the average. In other words, a card you should consider maybe not playing. Well, we're looking at a very small sample size, so take everything the statistics are showcasing here in this video with a grain of salt. None of the decks are apparently playing Adnos, which actually kinda makes sense. Kriik is playing some really expensive spells, so yeah, this one might be tricky. Of all the decks we've looked at, Villis is included in every single one of them. Kinda makes sense. But if we look at Razaketh and calculate the deck's average win rate that include Razaketh, we're getting something like 13% win rate, so might not be equally good compared to Villis. Now there is a Necrotic Ooze combo with Kriik, and as you can see here, we did look at 80 Flux Reservoir recently, a Storm version of Kriik. Well, when we're looking at decks containing Necrotic Ooze, they have a much better win rate. Because what you do is give Necrotic Ooze the activated ability of drawing 7 cards for free black mana, with having this creature in your graveyard. And as you can see here, also pretty good win rate, they come pretty much together. This creature is also very key in that strategy. And then with Shouldered, paying 6 life, drawing 7 cards means that you can draw your entire deck, and you can't gain infinite life because you will die before you reach infinite life, but you gain a lot of life. And I mean, Kriik is a very life-focused deck, so this is basically a mana rock and an interaction versus your opponent, like a stacks and value engine at the same time. Kinda cool. I mean, this card really makes sense as a card for Kriik in general. I actually think that the reason a few people don't play it is just because those tournaments and those games happened before that thing saw print. Another popular combo inside Mono Black is Chain of Smog, and among the 6 decks that play Chain of Smog, they have an average win rate together of 14, compared to Necrotic Ooze that have a much better win rate in general and utilized as a combo. Or Hoarding Broodlord with an average win rate from 14 decks, 28.29. That's actually quite good, because in a multiplayer free-for-all 4-pod game, everyone have a theoretical win rate of 25, basically split by 4, and this is a little bit higher than that average. So we've looked at some win rates by individual cards, but what if we're looking at mana rocks and tutors? This was requested, so I've started to implement it as well. Now once again, we don't really have that huge sample size, and the decks are in kind of very similar to each other. They have something of the same amount, so to say, in general. Now what you're seeing here are the higher the staples go, these blue pillars, the higher the amount of mana rocks. You can actually see the number, how many they have. The further they are to the left towards me, the lower the win rate, and the further away they are towards the right, the higher the win rate. And we're looking at all 31 individual decks, one staple for each deck. And maybe many mana rocks might be key, so to say, maybe. But it's very similar. The ones closer towards a 0% win rate or a very low win rate have a little bit fewer mana rocks in general. But if we look at tutors, we can see a more clear difference. So once again, the higher the staple goes, the more tutors they have, the further away they are from me, the more to the right, the higher the win rate. The closer they are to me, towards the left, the lower the win rate. And you can see that a very low amount of tutors gives you a very low win rate in general here. And the more tutors you in general have, the higher the win rate. So it might be that you need to have a few tutors inside the deck to make sure it works. And by the way, Kriik has a lot of really strange tutors, which is why some of these decks actually reach like a 16 count. I mean, some decks are even playing this. It's basically 4 mana demonic tutor. Now in Kriik's case, it's 2 colorless and 4 life to demonic tutor. And even the 5 mana dark petition, as well as transmute cards like Demir Houseguard. Let's move over to spot removal. A lot of decks actually play a whole bunch of them, and actually have a pretty good win rate with them as well, like this one, Defile. Even Duress is actually being played. One deck actually did have a Maze of If in their deck, however, 0 win rate, and yeah, it's just one deck, so hard to say, but yeah, in a form of interaction, I guess. This is actually a card that I've been a little bit, that surprises me, I should say. Darkness, it's basically fog, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn for 1 black mana or yeah, basically 2 life. The strange part is that a lot of decks 19 to the count play it, and they still have a pretty good win rate. I would suspect, or I thought, that this card, when I collected all the data, would have a really low win rate, but apparently it's good. I can't say why, yeah, but well, maybe there's something that Kriik needs that I don't see as someone just making this video, as someone that doesn't play Kriik in general, just looking at the statistics here. Maybe it is that you kinda need to protect your life because you're being attacked all the time, so yeah, here you go, make your own conclusions about it. Grasp of Darkness, another creature spot removal. My guess is that this deck needs to be able to get rid of hate bears, creature hate bears, because we're trying to create something of a mixture of storm and creature activations together with graveyard. So there's a lot of different hate bears that could destroy this deck in general, like Draenei Magistrate can't get your commander into play, Thalia would be annoying, anti-creature activations, anti-graveyard like Dolphin Voidwalker, etc. So yeah, I can see the appeal of these things, and they kind of showcase that you're getting a good win rate by having them inside the deck in general. But there are a few weird interaction cards I've seen people actually play, and here's the statistics for Leshrac Sigil played by 6 decks, so a very low sample size, but 14% win rate. It's not kinda on point what you need, so to say, apparently. Same thing with Leyline of the Void, an 8% win rate. Now we're only looking at 3 decks, but I think what we're kinda seeing here, that Leyline of the Void and stacks cards like that are deviating away from the core idea of what Kriik wants to do. You want to tutor for your combo. You want to have some fast mana rocks, fast mana rocks, and some ramp early in the game to get going. But you need to be picky what you select. Just because it's producing mana for you doesn't mean it's something you should consider. Consider good cards. For example, this one have been playtested by 14 decks, and the average win rate is below average. But once you have gotten your commander into play, once you have accumulated a good base of mana production, you resolve your tutors, you resolve your win con, a few utility cards around that concept, like Animate Dead, and then somewhere down the line you finish the game with this, kinda. Where you have some interaction that is making sure you're able to combo off and win or interact with your opponents. Other plans seems to have a incorrect effect. And then you play a key selected, few spot removals or some form of interaction that is gonna make sure to resolve your win of sorts. Now let's look at some cards that are interesting to look at individually on their own. I have been against Sensei's Divining Top for quite a while. I don't personally like it. I don't think it's a good card in general. You're basically paying mana to look at top of your library now and then. It's not terrible, and sometimes for key strategies it's very good, but here if you look at the statistics, played by 19 decks, and an average win rate among those 19 is 14.5% win rate, which is lower than the average win rate of what the collective of what Kriik gets together. Emergency Zone, 21.5% win rate in the 21 decks that did include it. What I think here this is showcasing is the key importance of being able to interact in instant speed to win whenever on top of someone else basically. I mean, the focus for the decks that have been performing quite well have been turbo, and this is helping out, not helping out with the turbo, but helping out being able to combo off and win when you need to. Here's another one that is quite interesting, Boseiju Who Shelters All. Great when you're focused on something of a Peer into the Abyss or an Adnos strategy. The problem with this land is that it comes into play tapped, and that's why I think it's getting a lower win rate in general and a very low inclusion rate. As you can see, every single deck is playing Peer into the Abyss, so that Boseiju Who Shelters All is interesting. However, once again, apparently decks that did include it had a lower win rate, and I think that's because it comes into play tapped. We want a turbo, we want to be fast here, so that Boseiju could ultimately slow us down, even though it has a very good effect. Also, Kriik isn't really in general all focused on Peer into the Abyss. It has other strategies as well that they usually pivot towards. It's just one among many of different options. So Boseiju isn't key, as every tutor isn't going for Praetor's Peer into the Abyss. So this is actually a really cool card. It's a 4 mana or 2 mana and 4 life for a on your turn before you attack, you may put this guy into your graveyard to return a black card from your graveyard to your hand. A very strange Eternal Witness, but it's showcasing a tiny result. Thoughtseize have apparently been quite good. I personally really like Thoughtseize inside cEDH games. It's not equivalent to a counterspell, but I view them similar to like a micro silence and a micro counterspell, or Gitaxian Probe you could say. You get to look at someone's hand, you get information, and you get to remove key pieces that you would normally want to counterspell depending on the situation. It's not showcasing a huge amount of win rate here, but it's something that I think is worthy to mention and like to showcase it. I like to mention this because I personally think it's good. Necropotents have also been tested and played quite a bit, and it's showcasing an 18.62% win rate. But some value engines you should probably stay away from, like this Black Market Connections. Now, we don't have a huge sample size, 3 decks are close to nothing, but we still get to see that those 3 decks didn't perform great with it. Or, well, percentage is very tricky when you have that very low sample size. It honestly could be a great card for Kriik in general, but I actually believe that Kriik should be focused on a turbo game plan and not so much on the mid-range part. Bola Citadel is performing quite fine, quite equal to that Necropotence. But as you can see here, you don't need to include Aetherflux Reservoir to make your Bola Citadel functional. And neither do you need to include Sensei's Divining Top to make it good either. Instead, stick with Necropotence. When paired with Bola Citadel, those two together will actually perform quite good on their own. You don't need more utility for them, because this will in general assemble whatever combo that you are in general going for. Beshid Queen is also a very worthy tutor inside Kriik. because you're paying 6 life basically to tutor any card from your deck without paying any mana. That is really good. I hope this video showcased some once again, very low sample size, but showcased something for you and you learned something from this. If there are any specific things you would like to know about Kriik, all the data that I have collected, ask in the comments below and I will try to answer your question. Also, if there's a specific commander you would like to see, leave that in the comments below as well. Next video on the statistics list is Venota. Hope to see you then. Take care.